Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Mega Boss News. And quite a bit to discuss. I have not been on for a couple of weeks, and so I appreciate the fact that you've been patient with that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. But for each and every one of you, want to take the opportunity and time to share with everyone that there are things that are happening in the world that I think that is necessary to discuss and just to really deal with where we are right now in the United States and what it means at this point to be an American, and even some suggestions that you may find interesting. So before we get into that, I want to make sure my water is being seen. Anyway, I want to make sure that everyone is sharing, that you follow, like, subscribe, share, and I'm probably going to be a bit unorthodox today because uh, my concern with what is happening in the world right now is just, oh, I really have some concerns about some things that are taking place, and I think it is left up to the voter to know exactly what is happening and what's in front of us. So let's do this right now. For those of you that are watching, please make sure that you follow, like, share, subscribe. And the way that you do that is Facebook, Dr. Kevin A. Williams, Instagram, Dr. Kevin A. Williams Official. Um, X is Dr. KAW. And also, you could do YouTube at Kevin A. Williams 777. Anyone that wants to get in contact with us, Megaboss News 777 at gmail.com. Megaboss News 777 at gmail.com. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me well. I want to make sure that everybody can hear me well. Um, um, so let's and so somebody's put a question up already, and let's look at that question. The question is, will this be saved so I can come back and watch? I don't get off until 11 p.m. Yes, T. Armstrong, it will be saved, and we'll make sure that you can see it afterwards. All right. And thank you for asking that question. Those that we want everyone to be able to support Mega Boss News, and the way that you do that is Cash App, $ Dr. Kevin E. Williams, Zelle, Dr. Kevin E. Williams at gmail.com, paypal.me/Dr. Kevin E. Williams. And you can mail it to 1822 Short Road, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27406, and in the care of Dr. Kevin E. Williams. All right. So I want to put something on. This is about war. And what I am addressing right now is the great possibility and the conversation of war. We have not seen this conversation on the levels that we have seen it on at this point. And so I think it is important for us to take a look at it. This is a very serious matter. And sometimes, and this is one of the reasons why I'm addressing the subject in this way, because I am frustrated in the fact that the Associated Press, the news, either is not reporting, watering things down. And I know that we're in an election year, and everybody's trying to make their candidate look good, whether you are for Biden, Trump, or for Kennedy. That's not really my concern. Whoever you vote for is who you vote for based on your own convictions. But here's my issue. My issue is that would your vote be affected if in turn you knew certain information? And so sometimes I think that information it could be manipulated or even not given out, predicated on the fact of how the country would consider or think if they in turn saw certain things, heard certain things. So I'm going to put something up. It is with the Hindustan Times, and it's a 3-minute, 27-second video. I've got 4 videos I'm going to put up today. Just want you to see this, and let's take a look at this right now. Let's go for it.
Для России это означает прекращение ее государственности. Вот что это означает. Это означает конец тысячелетней истории российского государства. Я думаю, что это для всех понятно. А тогда встает вопрос, а зачем нам бояться? Не лучше ли тогда идти до конца? Это элементарная формальная логика.
No, stop that just for a second, because I want everybody to think about something. I don't know if you noticed it, but basically what Vladimir Putin is saying is simply this, and that is that I don't have a problem in going to the full end. I don't have a problem in the fact that if we're going to die, we're going to die fighting for our country, and we're willing to fight to the death, is what the mindset really is. Go ahead and continue playing, because I want you to be able to see what is happening here. This is such a serious matter. Stop for a second. All right, so there are two ways that Russia is saying that they can use nuclear weapons. One is that nuclear weapons are used on them. The second thing is that if Russia is under threat, if they're under major threat, Russia can use nuclear weapons. Now, here's the question: who decides what that kind of threat is? Who decides what then makes it so severe that now you have an existential threat to the state of Russia? Who decides that? Who decides that is Vladimir Putin. Go ahead and continue to play. No, really, you need to see this. Go ahead and take it down. All right, so I want you to think about what was just stated. Russia has stated on June 14th that the way that they would agree to a ceasefire is one, the area that they have taken over, that they want new territory, which is in Kyiv. They want to take over that area. That's the first thing. Second thing is that Ukraine is going to have to dismiss and abandon their desire to be a part of NATO. In doing so, then Russia says they will do a ceasefire. Now, remember, Russia feels like if the state of Russia is at stake, then they will use nuclear weapons. Well, why is Russia so angry right now? And very recently, Russia has stated that the United States is considered an enemy. They have never considered us an enemy, even though we have been opponents for years. And we have been what we call Cold War. There's been a Cold War mentality. And those that are not familiar with the term Cold War, it's not an outright war. But even though it's not an outright war, in the under the surface of things, they know that there is an issue between the two states. And so it is considered Cold War, where there is conflict, but there is no public conflict. It's just issue between the two states. So that's what we're looking at as a Cold War. All right. So as we've been in a Cold War, as there has been the issue with the United States and Russia for many years, there has still been some level of diplomatic respect, statehood, concerning the two nations. Russia now has stated that the United States is an enemy. Now, the question is why? The reason that Russia stated the United States is an enemy is because Ukraine used some weapons from the United States, and those weapons were carried over into Russia. And so once they hit a Russian target, and remember, the United States weaponry is really, really accurate. And so this is why President Biden has stated certain weapons can't be used in certain places, this, that, and the other, because it's going to violate, certain agreements. Well, we have a lot of concerns here, guys. We have a lot of concerns. Now, whether you want to hear this or not, and whether people like it or not, here's the reality. We are looking at war in a way that the United States needs to not only become very united internally, but we also have to make sure that we secure our allies that are in NATO and other places. Now, the United Nations is right here in the United States. It's in New York. And with all of these nations, and I believe there's like 193, 197 nations, something like that. With all of these nations that are there, there's conflict. There's major, major conflict. And because the conflict is so intense, you have the world divided over the wars that are happening right in front of us. The two major wars that are happening is, of course, Ukraine and Russia. And then you have the Gaza war, which is Israel. And in my opinion, you're dealing with Iran. That's ultimately what you're dealing with. And regardless of who are the faces of the war, they're nothing more than henchmen of Iran. So this is my question. My question is, do you think, number one, that that our administration right now understands the severity of where we are? And if they do, then the question is, why then is the American public not privy to the level of intensity that this is? Now, we are hearing that Vladimir Putin has already stated the United States is an enemy. And I'm going to, later on, I'm going to show you a video that is really probably going to just kind of hit you right in the gut. But there are things that we need to start considering. And this is why I call it news. Sometimes I'm a bit more entertaining. Other times I'm a bit more serious. And the reason being is because I want to make sure that people understand the severity of really what is happening. And this is not an easy thing to address. Now, is there a biblical perspective of it? Of course there is. And when people understand uh, the biblical perspective, just recently, and we'll talk about that, but just recently, um, a, a college has asked for my book be turned into a curriculum within their school. My book, God Science, which is really an eschatological book about the end of days. And that's what it's called, God Science, God's algorithm of the end of days. Well, now it's been asked to be turned into a part of the curriculum. And so I'm working on the syllabi now. In doing so, what it does alert me to is that now you have the collegiate community is now understanding that this is something that actually needs to be addressed, um, whether it is happening now or whether it's happening later. It is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And what better place to address it than in a collegiate environment and make it a part of their curriculum to make them understand. And so now, and I'm very appreciative of the fact when you do any kind of body of work, and that work then is recognized by an education institution that says we need this body of work in our curriculum. And I think that the other thing to look at is that as there are other as there are other communities in the educational community that wants this kind of information, then the question is, what does it merit? Well, what it says to me is that right now everyone is recognizing something is going on, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, very direct, not biting my tongue on it. If you have the billionaires of the world and they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to now create bunkers to protect themselves just in case of some major conflict, then whether you want to say that they are just paranoid or not, if you have billions of dollars, and that means that you have billions of dollars that gives you access to information that the general public does not have. And sometimes I don't need to know what you know to see what you're doing and have a good understanding of why you're doing that. Please hear what I'm saying. That if everybody is walking out of the house in shorts and flip flops, and they've got tank tops and t-shirts on, and then you've got somebody that walks out of the house and they're fully clothed, got an umbrella. At some point, you should look at the person that has the umbrella and wonder, why is everybody else wearing this and they're going out with an umbrella? And let's say that they are a very respected individual and very informed individual. Why they're going out with an umbrella? Something in you ought to say, maybe I need to check what's going on. This is the same mindset that you have concerning those that are billionaires. If they're making bomb shelters and making sure that things are secure, they've got enough food for so many years and different things like that. What does that say? What does that say? And they were doing this way before Vladimir Putin made this statement. So my question is, if they did it way before Vladimir Putin made the statement, what did they know in advance? What conversation from whatever embassy made it into their ears? Have you ever wondered why so many billionaires are backing so many politicians? Well, one of the reasons being is because they're also getting information nobody else is getting. And their actions are also revealing the fact of, based on the information that they're getting. If you had a president that's sitting at your house or they vacationed at your house, and then after the president left, all of a sudden all your actions change, I don't need to know what the conversation was to see what you're doing and read what you're doing to be able to say, something just happened in that, and I need to really check that out and see what's happening, what's going on. And so this is what I say to each and every individual. At this point, you're going to have to start recognizing that you cannot put your head in the sand and say nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. Something is happening. And I appreciate all of you that are congratulating me on my work being in a collegiate environment. I appreciate that because it does mean a lot. That's when your peers recognize your work to the point. There are people that worked all their life and are much smarter than me, and yet and still their work has not made in the collegiate environment. So I'm very, very appreciative, thankful, and humbled at that fact. But it also bears something else. It bears responsibility. It bears a responsibility for me, not just as an author, but for me as a preacher and for me as an eschatologist, to tell everybody, hey, something is happening and wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. I want to show you all something, and I'm choosing different news organizations. The reason I'm choosing different news organizations is because I don't want people to assume, well, he's a Republican, or he's a Democrat, or he's an independent, or he's this and the other. No, please understand. I am going to give you this news. Now, the bottom line is that my views may be considered conservative, and the reason they're conservative is because of one reason: the Word of God. And I think that I struggle with the fact that I have to be considered a conservative just because I believe thou should not steal, thou should not kill. But it's the world that we live in, and maybe we'll talk about that because the Ten Commandments needs to be everywhere. All right, so with that being said, I want to show you something from Fox News. So where I'm getting things from is hold it just 1 second.
Yeah,
so where I'm getting things from is Fox News Today, ABC News Today, and the Military Show. And so would you show this from Fox News, and I'll be telling you to cut it on and off. And just in just a minute, I'll be asking you all some questions. But there's some things that I need you to see because all of us need to understand. Go ahead and play it.
Thank you, Trey. Retired four-star General Jack Keane in studio. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Let's come back to Israel and Hezbollah in a moment. And let's start here with what happened this week, because there's an alliance that we need to pay attention to. Wall Street Journal, here you go. How Putin rebuilt Russia's war machine with help from U.S. adversaries. Iran, North Korea, and China are supplying the people and know-how to tool up Russia's factories and churn out arms for the war in Ukraine. This relationship could be very dangerous for us for a very long time. How do you see it?
Yeah, very much so. 4 days after the State of the Union, our intelligence chiefs came before a scheduled meeting with the Congress, and they said these 4 countries that you identified here represent a threat to the United States we haven't seen in multiple decades. And looking at this, what we're really facing is collaboration and cooperation among 4 distinct allies. China is a near-peer competitor. Russia is a chronic threat. Iran seeks domination of the Middle East, and in North Korea has a nuclear arsenal with ballistic missiles that can reach the United States. This is serious. We believe at ISW that we haven't seen a threat like this since World War II. Why? Because we could get involved in more than one war in multiple theaters. That is really the issue that we're facing.
Stop you just a
And
second.
here's the problem, Bill. The intelligence
General Jack King said, we can get involved in multiple wars in multiple theaters, meaning that all over the world, the United States, if we're not careful, can get in a war with Russia, a war with China, a war with Iran, and a war with North Korea. Now, the United States is the baddest junkyard dog in the world, but we can't fight Earth. Now, I do believe that God is with us, and I believe that God is with us because of the conviction that we have, and the conviction, let me say this, that I believe that we have, that the scripture tells us that anyone that is an ally of Israel, God's favor is on and with them. But anyone that fights against Israel, there is going to be problems, because heaven is going to come against that environment. Now that's scripture. He makes a statement to Abraham. This is Genesis 12, verse 3. I will bless them that bless you, and then I will curse him that curse you. He says to him in Genesis 17, through thee all the nations of the earth be blessed. The conflict right now, I believe, is based on Genesis 15, verse 18, of the promised land that God had given Israel. And this is why all of this chaos is happening right now. Think about all the land in the whole earth, and this area called Israel, that probably is the same size as New Jersey. The whole earth is watching this one area. This general makes a statement, 4-star general. So you're not dealing with somebody that's a novice when it comes to war. You're looking at someone that understands the value of what war really is and what's taking place. Go ahead and hit play.
Chief said this is very serious. We haven't seen it in decades. We're saying we haven't really seen anything like this since World War II. Where is the administration having a frank conversation with the American people about the seriousness of this threat and how it would impact American security? It is not happening. And that is pretty outrageous and shameful.
This, as we continue to see these escalating clashes happening in the Middle East. Trey Yingst just gave us a full report between Israel and Hezbollah. Do you believe that they are inching closer to all-out war?
Yeah, they are. And the Israelis have made up their minds that they need to take a look at the Hezbollah situation. And we have a map here. Hopefully we can bring it up here that deals with it. But the reality is that 80,000 people who lived in northern Israel have evacuated from northern Israel. And in a sense, Hezbollah has redefined the boundary of northern Israel. The Israelis believe they have got to go in there and deal with Hezbollah. And they have to push them back across the Litani. That's not the right map, but they have to push them back across the Litani River. This is 18 miles from the border. That is the issue. To push them back, they have two choices: run an air campaign only to obviously bomb them and force them to evacuate, or go in on the ground and also conduct an air campaign. Hezbollah is formidable. Hamas is nowhere near Hezbollah's capability. Hezbollah doesn't have the subterranean tunnel complex. But here's the problem. 150,000 rockets and missiles can reach any town or any city and swarm those towns and cities. A force of close to 100,000, not just a terrorist organization, but organized as military formations with artillery and fighting vehicles. When the Israelis went in there in 2006, after several weeks trying to do the same thing, push the Hezbollah back. After several weeks, the operation had failed, and they retreated out of Lebanon, and all 3 service chiefs were relieved of duty as a result of it. They know this will be a very tough fight, but they believe they have to do it if they're going to maintain the sovereignty of Israel and have the border that they want to have.
18 years later, it could be a hot summer again in northern Israel. Let's see if that's the case. Now to Ukraine. We do have a map we can show that you and I have talked about at great length. And what it shows is the Ukrainian capacity on behalf of their military, with extensive help from Western nations, including the United States, with the capacity to hit Russian forces on the Russian side of the border. But this map shows you where the Russian troops are and where the Ukrainians are not allowed to hit.
Yeah, we have a huge problem here, and the administration isn't coming clean.
Now, I want you to see something here, because what you're looking at is also that there are areas that United States missiles are not allowed to hit in Russian territory because of the fear, and I'm going to use that word, of Russia's retaliation on the United States. Go ahead and press play. I need y'all to see this.
About what's actually happening here. Can we put the map back up so I can talk to it a little bit? Yeah, you see that bright red area there across from Ukraine? That is where we can fire HIMARS, or what they call guided multiple rocket launchers, into that. That's 75 kilometers into that. But see all the gray area outside of that? That's the Russian sanctuary where we cannot fire. That's all Russian territory. All the air bases that Russia is using to bomb Ukraine are largely in that area. Those are those little white circles there. Their ground bases, their logistic bases are all in that area. And the administration has told Ukraine they cannot fire the weapons that we've given them, the ATACMS missiles, to fire into that territory. That is absolutely makes no sense.
Stop.
To not.
Did y'all just hear it? That the current administration said, listen, you cannot use our weapons to fire in this area. So that area in the gray area, you cannot use our weapons to fire in the area. You can use anybody else's weapons, but you can't use our weapons to fire in that area. But it is the area that is the most dangerous, that is really just putting the pressure on Ukraine. Now, here's the question, why? The reason being is because the United States is concerned about an all-out war with Russia. Now, for those of you all that think the United States, and I'm just going to go ahead and speak for the country that I live in and that I love. For those of you all that think the United States is not a dangerous foe, not a dangerous force to be reckoned with, let's consider this fact. Russia has joined up with who? Iran, North Korea, and China. Iran, North Korea, and China, with Russia, are united to deal with what? The U.S.? Tell me the U.S. is not the baddest junkyard dog in the world. But please understand, even though I know that everybody got nuclear weapons, and we got probably just as many nuclear weapons as Russia does, the casualties of life and the amount of people that could die because of people not making wiser decisions. Now, according to the word of God, the war is going to happen. And I'll tell you all right now, and whether it bothers you or not, I'm going to tell you biblically what the Bible says. The Bible says that what's going to happen is that 1/3 of mankind is going to die because of this next war, which is World War III. Now, that is what we call the Sixth Trumpet War in Revelations, the 9th chapter, starting at the 13th verse. That means over 2.2 to 2.5 billion people on the earth is going to die in some way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly because of this war. And when you say indirectly, what do you mean? What I mean is this, and that is that you can die by explosion, gunshot, missile, or indirectly when you're dealing with radiation. And it's happening right in front of us. It's happening real time. It's happening now. Go ahead and play this because I got something else I want to play.
Be able to do that. And it's really handcuffing them in their ability to protect their own people, but also in their ability to bring down the military capability that Russia has. It is very, very vulnerable. And even Russia, they've been on the offense because Ukraine has been on defense this year because they were waiting 6 months to get the weapons. They haven't made much progress at all. They showed up with new soldiers. They're poorly trained, poorly equipped. They made some tactical gains, but were never able to really develop operational maneuver to take significant amount of territory. They took very high casualties, all like they did back in the beginning of the invasion. Ukraine, we can turn the tide in their favor, and the administration has got to stop handicapping them.
General, thank you. We'll see whether or not that happens, whether that day arrives. And if it does, we'll see what Putin does at that point. Thank you, General.
Great to have you here, General. Thank you.
Great discussion.
I'm Steve Doocy.
All right, close this out. All right, so let's look at this, guys. I want to know, before I deal with scripture and deal with the next thing, I want to know your thoughts, because here's the reality. I'm not going to ask you, are we near war? I'm telling you we are. I'm telling you. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody understands it. All the powers that be are saying it. And the powers that be, I'm not talking about people in their opinion concerning media. I'm talking about the powers that be concerning prime ministers, presidents, dictators, all the above are saying that war is coming and World War III is imminent. You have not heard the conversation of World War III. Usually when you have the conversation of World War III, it's church folk talking about it. Eschatologists talking about it. People that understand the end of days, they're talking about it. Now you have governments talking about it. Governments talking about it. Let's not remember that it was not too long that Kim Jong-un was sitting down with President Trump, first time, deep conversation, all of that. And now he has thrown all of his support behind Russia. We can't get no oil from Saudi Arabia. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. Now, we got some questions that came up, so let me put those questions up while you get me this out. Y'all got some start things. Go ahead, put it up here. Have you seen the dragon head on the Empire State Building and other buildings in New York? I have. And even though they are stating that, they're trying to state that that was a publicity stunt concerning the Game of Thrones, the reality is that anytime you start seeing dragons on top of buildings, it is also, to me, a warning that Satan is, that Satan is around. I would say, and that we've got some major problems that's getting ready to happen. The attack that was on 9/11, 2001, 9/11. I would say anybody, even, right now, I'm not telling you to, I'm not going to put it up here. I'm going to tell you, I want you to look at 9/11, go back and look at the tapes of 9/11 when the buildings are being blown up. And I'm not just talking about the two Twin Towers. I'm talking about the other buildings that were around there. When you see them blown up and you see the smoke coming out, I want you to just start and stop the smoke that comes out. You will be surprised of how many demonic faces you will see on a regular basis, real time, on your YouTube. Now, trust me. And what I want you to do is put that, when you see it, put in the chat, or either you could put it on your Instagram and tag me connected to it, because literally, one night I had nothing to do, which my nothing to do is always studying, and I promise you, I was like, this can't, what in the world? Next question, put it up. So I'm gonna get all these up. Visually, how to obtain a copy of this book. You obtain the copy of the book, you go to Amazon, pull up God's Science, God's Algorithm to the End of Days. But if you just pull up God's Science, then you'll see Dr. Kevin Williams, and you can get that book. And there's a workbook too, and I suggest that you probably get both of them, because it is that book and the workbook that made the college. And of course, I did some interviews and things like that. And these colleges are just saying, listen, that needs to be a curriculum. But thank you for asking that question. You can go to my Instagram also. It's connected to my Instagram. And I think we even have a QR code that I may put it up here or put it on Instagram. But anyway, you can get that book. But I promise you, it is a book worth reading. Next question. Is that why the U.S. brought back the draft? You better believe it. You better believe it. But people realize it or not, we're headed for war. Now, when is it? I'm not sure. I've got this question I do not have the answer to, but I will look it up. I will look it up. Next question. Are you concerned about domestic terrorism with the open borders? Most definitely. I'm worried about domestic terrorism with closed borders. We're letting so many people in the country right now, we don't even know who's coming. We have no control nowhere. I'm not attacking this present administration, but I am going to say something. When Donald Trump was in office, I saw the present administration said, leave the borders open. When they got in office, Kamala Harris made a statement, do not come. Now, I don't know if y'all saw that. I saw it. They turned around and said, do not come. We got millions of people that are coming in this country and we don't know. And please hear my heart. I believe the majority of people that are coming have good hearts. But I tell you what, the people that are bad that are coming here, I believe a lot of people that are coming here illegally, they really got good hearts. They really want to do better. They want better for their families. That's why they're trying to escape from where they are. But with them is coming in some people that do not have good hearts. And ultimately, I mean, look at this other situation where this man rapes this little girl, ties her up, and I'm not supposed to say that, sexually assaults. I don't know why we have to have nice words, have a nicer word for a violation. And now they're telling us to say SAs. SA can be anything. But assaults. Now, they did some street justice on him, and I can't say that I blame him. I can't say that I blame him. And when I tell you they whooped him, they whooped him. And y'all know how I feel about it. Now, violates, he got a 13-year-old girl, and I tied up a 13-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy together and sexually assaults a 13-year-old girl. Now you got a 13-year. Now both are traumatized because now you got a 13-year-old boy that is watching a 13-year-old girl be assaulted, and he's going to feel emasculated for the rest of his life. Both of them need therapy. No, when they found him, trust me. Now, those of y'all that do not know, because I go to Africa quite a bit. Okay. In Africa, try it if you want to. In Africa, they don't wait for the police to get there. In Africa, now I'm telling you something that I know. I got 2 churches there and I got business there. So I know. In Africa, try it if you want to. When the police gets there, they'll get there to see your remains. They'll beat you and then put gasoline on you and set you on fire, and the community will watch you die. After you are dead, then they will call the police and say there's somebody burning up under a bridge. I know. If you are messing with somebody's woman, the community comes and gets you and kills you and beats you in front of everybody. In fact, if you don't get killed and just get beat or maimed, you have gotten off well. That's in Africa. As you can imagine, probably ain't too much creeping in Africa. I'll tell you that. Next question. What would the world or life look like during World War III? It is going to be catastrophic. According to the word of God, it's going to be catastrophic. And understand of not buying or selling unless you have the mark of the beast, things like that. Look at where the world is right now. And so when you deal with things like 2.5 billion people dead, what is the level of identity theft? What is the level of carnage? What is the level of violation? What you've got now, martial law. And there have been times that we've had martial law, and trust me, martial law is not something that you want to deal with. Not at all. Next question. From a friend, what is your perspective of the Russian vessels around the coast of Cuba as it relates to the United States? I believe that Russia always says that they're doing exercises, but really when Russia says they're doing exercises, is nothing more than preparation. That's all it is, preparation. Russia's ready for war and itching for it. Now I believe they can, now please understand something. They're having a hard time with us just sending over weapons supporting Ukraine. And they having a hard time whooping Ukraine. And we just sending things over. That's like us sitting on the sidelines saying, hook a left now, hook a right, duck, swing. But what happens when we get in the ring ourselves and say, just step aside, we got this. We're going to whoop you without nuclear. Now you're going to say that, and I believe that Russia would use nuclear, and the reason they would go nuclear is because when you're getting beat, I mean, look at the mindset of the world right now. When I was growing up, if you got in a fight with somebody and you got beat up, you just got beat up. The fight was over. Now you beat somebody up, what do? They go home and then get a gun and still start looking for you because people cannot handle the fact of loss, because people are obsessed with winning. They're obsessed with winning. And so when you got to come behind somebody and shoot them to kill them, you're not a winner, you're a cheater. You're a cheater. Next question, then I'll show my next. What is your take on FEMA camps? Sometimes they're necessary, especially in tragic situations. We saw that with Katrina. I had my own experience with FEMA. Those of you know, we had a tornado come through and rip through Greensboro. So I had I've had my experience with FEMA. And so I understand firsthand, and I dealt with them directly. It wasn't indirect, it was direct. Now I will say that we had some powers that be that did not like it, that FEMA was dealing directly with me. Oh well, life goes on. I say powers that be, I'm talking political powers that be. Sometimes they need a hug. All right, put my next ABC News. It's a minute and 44 seconds.
The arrival of the USS Theodore Roosevelt in South Korea, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier reaching port just days after Russian President Putin's warning about arming North Korea. ABC's Britt Clennett is in Hong Kong with more on this. Good morning, Britt.
Good morning, Rhiannon. Yeah, the USS Roosevelt arrived in Busan for pre-planned drills with South Korea and Japan. The countries really appearing to ramp up military training in the face of growing threats from North Korea. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin meeting Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang, agreeing that they would help each other out in the event of aggression. Now, the Roosevelt's scheduled stop in Busan comes 7 months after a similar port call by another U.S. carrier. The American military exercises with South Korea and Japan called Freedom Edge. Now, they've been long in the making, but this is really another marker of the growing cooperation between these countries. Seoul and Tokyo increasingly willing to put their differences aside to counter threats in the region, including an assertive China and North Korea's growing military arsenal. South Korea's military said the arrival of the Roosevelt, it demonstrates the strong defense posture of these allies and a stern willingness to respond to advancing threats from North Korea. Seoul also summoned the Russian ambassador to protest that defense agreement with North Korea. Also, South Korea warning it may consider sending weapons to Ukraine to help defend it against Russia's invasion. Now, during Putin's lavish North Korean trip, Kim Jong-un declared his full backing and solidarity for Russia's war in Ukraine, while Putin thanked Kim for his unwavering support. Gio?
All right.
Why is
Now I
he
want you to take this down for a second. Now I'm going to ask you all a question. What does that mean to you? No, what does it mean to you? Now I'm going to tell you what it means to me. What it means to me simply is this. When Kim Jong-un was talking to Donald Trump, and then he turns back around and he's talking to Vladimir Putin, and now he has put all of his support towards Putin, I want you to think back before he was not talking to either one of them and what was happening at the time. What was happening at the time was Kim Jong-un, because they kept talking about their nuclear weapons, but remember, their missiles and things like that was going off the ground and blowing up, and they were raggedy, couldn't fly. They were going in all different kind of places, and it was just crazy. So what did Kim Jong-un know? He knew that I need to get with a superpower to make sure that my nuclear, that everything that I have concerning my nuclear program is accurate, because it's something that we're missing. So I'm going to need to get with a superpower. And I think that he was courting Russia and the United States. And obviously, Russia's taking Kim Jong-un to the dance and not the US, which now we have another enemy that has nuclear capability. Now, I'm going to show you, there is something that I'm going to show you, and it's called, it's on the military show. Now, this is, when I come off of this, I want you to take a look at it. It's 18 minutes long because you need to really see it. But I'm going to have them to put it up in a minute, a minute into the video. What this video is about, it is about the possibility of Russia then took nukes and hit the United States. Where would they hit? Don't have time to show you the whole thing. That's why I want you to be able to look at it. And this is why I show you these kind of things, because you're going to have to be able to start thinking in a different kind of way. Put a minute in and watch this. Take a look.
Look at the places Russia might target with a nuclear barrage.
Home Depot hates.
Home Depot hates. Lord have mercy. Go ahead. Just keep playing it. They got a free
When you do
advertisement.
this, but they can't stop you.
Now, click.
This new $80 hyper.
Starting in the United States. Some of the first US targets for a Russian nuclear strike are the major centers of power you would expect. The Pentagon is among the most important of these, as it acts as the headquarters for the US Department of Defense. If Russia were able to damage or destroy the Pentagon, it would be an enormous blow to the command structure of the US military. It would likely not cripple the US armed forces, but would cause a major disruption and make it far more difficult for the US to organize a response. Because of the size of the nuclear blast and its fallout, a strike on the Pentagon would also likely destroy much of Washington, D.C. Some 713,000 people live in D.C., while more than 6.3 million live in the greater D.C. area. Estimates for a nuclear strike on the Pentagon indicate that close to 500,000 people could be killed instantly, with many more falling sick from radioactive fallout afterwards. The initial blast would vaporize the Pentagon itself and anything else within a half-mile radius. Damage from the strike would radiate outwards some 4 miles from the epicenter, including the area containing the US Capitol building, White House, and Supreme Court. While the nuclear fireball and the enormous shockwave following it would be deadly on their own, it is the potential for widespread radiation which would create the biggest hazard. Radiation anywhere near the blast would be intense enough to cause third-degree burns, while also causing many harmful mutations in victims' DNA, leading to cellular degeneration and cancer. Even if people in the larger blast radius managed to survive the explosion, there's a good chance they would die from the huge amount of radiation exposure. The White House is roughly 2.17 miles from the Pentagon, putting it well within the damage zone of a nuclear blast. If the president were there, they would likely be killed by the force of the shockwave, even if the White House and Capitol were not targeted independently. Thousands of US officials and workers would certainly be killed, sending the government into crisis mode. The president would declare a state of emergency and likely invoke martial law. If the president were killed, the next in the line of succession would be the vice president, Speaker of the House of Representatives, President pro tempore of the Senate, Secretary of State, and so on, until someone alive could be reached.
Now I want you to look at that right there. If the president is out of commission, then immediately the vice president goes in. Then the Speaker of the House, then a President pro tempore of the Senate, and then Secretary of State. Go ahead and take it down. With all of those, and I want you to look at that. The reason I had to stay up is because I want you to look at the resume of all of those people right now. Just look at the resume of all of those people that are in office right now and ask yourself the question, if the country's in a state of emergency, which one of those people would you depend on to be able to make the right decisions for the United States? With that being said, I'm going to close this out. Please hear what I'm saying. This is not an easy situation. It's not, and even though that was hypothetical, let me tell you what is not hypothetical: the threat of war. Let me tell you what is not hypothetical: war is coming. I pray for everybody in the United States that is in the military. I pray for them, regardless of who they are. Reserves, I pray for them, and you got to consider the draft as well. There's a lot to cover, and I can't cover it all right now. Please hear what I'm saying. This is not an easy situation, and don't bury your head in the sand. War is coming. To each and every one of you, if you want to connect with us, there are different ways to connect. Right now, let's put it up. So these are all the ways that you can connect with me. Well, that's ways to give. So let me just go ahead and address that. So ways to give is $ Dr. Kevin E. Williams, Zelle Dr. Kevin E. Williams @gmail.com, PayPal.me/Dr. Kevin E. Williams, and you can mail it to 1822 Short Road, Greensboro, North Carolina. Ways to connect with me: Facebook, Dr. Kevin E. Williams; Instagram, Dr. Kevin A. Williams Official; X, Dr. KEW Official; and then you have YouTube, which is @Kevin A. Williams 777, and then you have you can email me at megabossnews777@gmail.com. Listen, I think all of you are tremendous and great people, and I want you to know that I appreciate your time today. Take a look at this, relook at it again, send it to a friend, because right now we're getting ready to experience Revelations, the 9th chapter, starting at the 13th verse, like never before. Blessings to each and every one of you. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless.